hang, meet people, be a nice person, be an open person, have open ears, kind of learn the little tricks of the trade. You know, every little music community has them.
Brent, it's great to have you here for the sessions. We've been doing these interviews, and I get excited with certain people because of the intensity and the way that they live their life as equal to how they play music. As a guitar player and a songwriter, you are right at the forefront of playing music and actively doing this nonstop.
Yeah, I had those days. It was literally nonstop.
and that's fantastic that you're loving this, you're doing this, you're living your passion. Tell me about where music first entered your life.
Music was in my family from the get-go. You know, my father played guitar. Mm-hmm. Mom played piano, guitar, accordion. You know, my brother plays. My grandfather on my mom's side, her father played. Grandmother, everybody played.
So you've been blessed to have that in your family.
Because I was surrounded by family.
So there was always music around the household.
Oh, yeah, always. Yeah. My dad was a factory worker, but they were like weekend warriors. They had played gigs on the weekends. You know, my mom and dad. So it kept them young. You know, they loved music, and that was what they loved to do.
Absolutely. So did you get involved with playing with other musicians at a young age?
Well, you know, I was kind of a solo guy. When I first started, I had it was like a Spanish guitar that my grandmother had, and I was fooling around with it. I didn't really know any chords on it, but I would take the table knives, you know, kitchen table knife, and play slide on it. And Mom and Dad had Ray Charles albums, and you know there wasn't much guitar on Ray's album, but I was the guitar player from the outside playing on them, you know. And so, you know, the music was starting to, you know, come out then.
So you were playing along to different recordings, is what it was? Was a part of the early way of
learning?
Well,
I was about 6 or 7.
That's fantastic,
you know.
fantastic. So, did you ever take any formal lessons?
Well, I did there was a guitar teacher in my area, which is around, I lived in a little area called Groveyville, Ohio, which is close to Fort Wayne, Indiana, right across the state line. It was a jazz teacher, and he taught me some things. I had gathered some books, like South Salvador long finger chords, and which they were kind of jazzy chords, you know, diminished chords and, you know, polyphonic chords or whatever, you know. And I was going, well, you know, my ear was so good when I was, you know, 12 or so that I would figure out chords with harmonies and then find out that they were legit chords when I looked through that South Salvador book. I know that chord.
You had this teacher, you're learning these different chords.
Right.
You're discovering these different jazz chords, so you're kind of like widening your musical scope.
Right, because my dad was a country music musician. You know, they played top 40 country mainly. And back then he was a big fan of like Eddie Arnold and Hank Williams Sr., you know. And that was his idol. And so they played a lot of that music, and I remember him days, you know, sitting there while they had Hee Haw on and watching Roy Clark and Buck Owens, and he loved Buck Owens, you know. So, and I even got a little of the Western swing in. My dad loved Bob Wills, so that, you know, was Western swing, which was jazz, like big band music with stringed instruments.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I got a pretty diverse collection, you know, experience with all those kinds of music. They like different kinds. I mean, I remember seeing Louis Armstrong records from Mom and stuff like that. And just, so it was, you know, they had some pop stuff too.
So you were exposed to a lot of different stuff at a young age?
Yeah, so I was just surrounded by it. You know, just to sum it up, I was surrounded by music. That was
beautiful. When did you start playing with other musicians? When did that start?
Probably when I was in high school. You know, trying to find musicians around there. It seems like I was a little more advanced. I don't want to sound pompous or, you know, I couldn't find anybody that matched my abilities, you know, and there was some out there, obviously. But I was just playing some, you know, playing rock music too, because, you know, we were looking for girls, you know, we wanted the adoration response from all these great, you know, girls back then, whenever we could.
Did it work?
Yeah, it kind of worked. Yeah, I remember those days when it worked, you know.
So you're playing with the band, you're playing all different types of music. When did starting to become a professional happen, where you're working for making money?
Well, I was still in my area, same area. Now, I didn't go to college. I went directly to work in a factory. It was a toolbox factory, and I was starting to get depressed because I thought all my music aspirations were going down the toilet. But I started playing, there was a bowling alley, the lounge part where I played like 3 nights a week. I got a gig doing that. A few nights a week and then working a factory job. I remember waking up just literally vomiting. I hated that job so bad.
So the passion for music was driving you so powerful that,
Yeah.
but you had this job to make some money.
Right.
Yeah.
It was good money, just cash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back where we were playing, we had a family band. You know, my wife always jokes about it, like, "Oh, you're the Partridge Family," you know. And I said, "Oh, come on, stop." But we kind of were. But you know, back in that Midwest area, like Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan, all that, they always had these lodges. Remember all the animal lodges, like the Moose Lodge,
Yeah.
the Elks Lodge,
Yeah.
Eagles Lodge, the VFWs. Those were where everybody worked, you know.
Right.
You had to set up around the bingo game, you know. Don't touch the bingo game. The cage that has all. We'd go, yeah, I'll set my amp over here. So that was the most important thing. But we'd play those gigs a lot on the weekends, you know. And they paid good. Weddings, of course, just like anywhere else.
So when were you able to turn around the full musician role and leave the factory job? When did that happen?
When I got laid off at the factory I was working, it was a toolbox factory. And I just want to say real quick, I had put a rivet through this thumb here when I was joking around and talking, and I put a rivet and I said, I got to get out of here. This is my fingers, this is my hands. I always think of that James Taylor song he's singing about the mill worker.
Yeah.
If you ever heard that song.
Absolutely.
I know, I could identify with that.
Yeah.
Totally, you know, like you just never even meet the man that's on the label and you're looking at your hands all scathed up, you know, and scarred. That's what I was doing at lunchtime. That's how you got to get out of here. They got laid off, then I moved. I had a gig in West Virginia, Wheeling, West Virginia somewhere, where it was a kind of a disco place. It was when disco was coming in, and the guy said, hey, we got a live band here and we want to join the band. And I remember playing there, and while I was playing there, I said, they're going to fire this band. I'm not going to be here that long because they're going to turn this over to a DJ. It was when that was kind of taking precedence over live bands and stuff that was coming in. So I played there a while, and then I said, my wife, I said, let's just go to Nashville. You know, Mom had a place there. Let me go back a little bit. My grandmother had passed away and she had some money left over. Mom said, I want to give you some money. You just stay there a while and see how you do. So she knew that's what my passion was. And she only saw Nashville. She didn't think of like LA or New York. She was, like I said, they were country music people. And Nashville's where you need to be. So I took a trip to Nashville. Stayed there a while, thanks to her. She set me up there for a few months. Had some money to rent a place. Finally met some people there. Stayed there ever since. I got a weekly gig at a nightclub that turned into be like a hot nightclub where musicians would come to see us play.
Fantastic.
So we got notoriety like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Fantastic. So here you are now. So are you starting to get session work, or is that starting to happen at that time?
Session work was hard to do back then. But I was there. So, and the whole key of it, the main thing is to be there and to be at the right place at the right time and to kind of get into these cliques that were going on. We were playing late at night, but I had to get up and go hang out at some songwriters events and meet people and work for basically free. Said, if I'm working for a songwriter or something, they go, we love what you're playing on. Would you be able to do a recording session? We're going to record this song. We don't have much money, pay. That's cool. I'll be there.
So that was the real networking way of doing it.
It still is.
It still is, but you were getting up early and you were going there, so you were pursuing it to make sure that you had that networking reach.
I was tired and, foggy, but
Yeah.
I tried to get out there. I even got a songwriting deal through CBS Songs. That's how far back was CBS, Sony now, and just writing some songs on a draw.
Where did the writing of songs come from? Where'd that skill in that?
Well, I was writing songs all along, I was writing. So, that was another facet of it when I got to Nashville. I would write some songs. I would go down to publishing companies and play them, and they saw a lot of potential, but they wanted me to perfect it. So I would get at the time, I think the whole process is setting the not so experienced songwriters up, but they had a lot of potential with some renowned songwriters, that way you'd learn the trade. And they still do that. You'll see young artists get with great songwriters and hone their, skills and stuff on songwriting. Right. So I was doing that. I had signed with Charlie Monk Family Music, who was an affiliate of CBS Songs at the time. And I wrote with Keith Stegall, who wrote Al Jarreau's song, Wear This Love Together and stuff. And we'd write, plus a bunch of country hits. They were writing all kinds of stuff back then, you know. Dr. Hook, he had written Sexy Eyes or something like that. So I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great? This is going to parlay for me for sure into something good. And the songwriter thing didn't really take precedence because everybody was hearing me play the guitar so great. Rather than the songwriting, they would say, that song's pretty good, but what you're doing on guitar, would you play on my demo? I know I'm jumping ahead here.
But that's all right.
I'm fast forwarding.
But this is interesting. So your playing kept on speaking louder as far as what your potential talent was, although the songwriting thing was still there, and that was chugging along at a steady pace. That's fantastic. So at what point did you realize that you had kind of arrived, that now you were playing and doing it and recording? And
Well, they started booking me on sessions, and I would see Barry Beckett, from the Muscle Shoals famous, guys like Larry London, God rest his soul, was a drummer, David Hungate on bass,
absolutely,
And I know you knew Larry London. You're a drummer, so you
very
know.
well. I knew Larry London. I knew him for
guys like
many
Eddie
years.
Bears and Larry London, and I'd see those, and I go, oh my God, these are the guys that I looked. These are the guys that I looked up to. When you would get the albums and you see the credits, I wasn't so interested in who was the star. I was interested in the listed musicians on it. So I saw, all of a sudden I was playing with these guys, and it was like a dream come true. I said, oh my God, I was a nervous wreck.
Right.
I could barely keep food down every morning, thinking I got to show up and look at David Hungate playing the bass and Larry London over there, or whatever.
And these guys
and Barry Beckett playing keys.
legends.
Yeah.
So here you are now in the studio playing with these legends, and they were legends because.
And a lot of them would do demos, like Tony Brown, who's a producer now, but Barry Beckett. They'd get in and play on the songwriters' demos because they wanted the fresh songs to come out. They wanted to, hear what was coming out and get to them before anybody else would. So they would actually play on their demos, and they go, give me a copy of that song. I might cut that on, blah, 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 But I was in there with them playing, and I was going, wow, isn't this cool? But it made me a nervous wreck because they were probably hearing about me, so I had to really dazzle them. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, It's like, if I don't play great, this might be my last session. So I was a nervous wreck.
Well, that ability of being able to worry about if it's your last session is a real motivating force too.
My first and last session.
That really motivates us to want to push ourselves better.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Should.
That's the healthy way of looking.
It seems that that's what you did. You kept on, growing in the process, which is extremely healthy. So you use that pressure and that stress to a certain degree as a propellant, which is fantastic that you did that.
Yeah.
So you're moving along, you're doing all this stuff here too. How do you organize the business part of this here? Is there a way that you schedule yourself? Is there an organizational skill that you have? How do you make all this happen?
I was doing my own booking and word of mouth, and my wife would book it and write it in the, literally in the book. Here you can do a 2 o'clock here, and I was doing it all myself. It wasn't like it was real advanced professionalism. But
you had assistance from your wife to help you out, so you had that partner ability to make it happen. That's very, very important.
It was a time when it was really getting my eyes crossed and confusion and double booked. A good problem.
Absolutely.
Good problem.
Those are growing pains for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you keep yourself motivated now? Is there music you're listening to now? Is there stuff that you're doing now to keep yourself fresh in all this here?
Yeah. Well, I go back and listen to my old stuff and get inspired. No, I had to do that. I'd made a joke of that. I was going through it. I had to stop that one, didn't I? I do listen to old stuff. I still do. I mean, I'll go from listening to old Merle Haggard records to Steely Dan. So, it goes, it's like, well, I hadn't found anything any better. But there is great stuff out there. But if you want to really search, there's a lot of avenues to find, stuff like that now. You might not hear in the mainstream as much. I got a whole diverse peripheral, taste of different stuff.
Good for you.
Makes for a good session player, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you want that roundness of everything. That's fantastic that you're doing all that listening. Is there any one performance or session that stands out that you felt was really a turning point in how you learned, or just something that you really just realized, wow, this...
When I was playing in a club every night, maybe we'll go back where I got my gig, I was here, finally got a nightclub gig, a rough gig, we're talking honky tonks, in the South, and who knows who was going to get shot, you know what I mean? I just hope it wasn't me, or I was near a ride cymbal where I could use it as a shield. It was pretty scary back then. But Chet Atkins, the late great Chet Atkins, had heard about me, and he had come in this club I was playing. I was worried for his life because I thought he's going to come in here, and he came in, and I was thinking, man, it might be rough for him. I was worried, but he had brought different guitar players and or artists or musicians with him because they heard me. One time he brought in, first I think he brought in Ray Flack, who was a British, played with Ricky Skaggs at the time. Then he brought in Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, had
incredible.
At that time. So these are guys, he's walking in with him, and of course here I am again getting like, oh my God, I got to be great now, do it. And then he brought George Benson in. About the time George was pretty hot. I think Quincy Jones was doing his record. He had like on Broadway and all. He had a pretty hot career then. And then after all that, then Chet called me at home in my duplex, answered the phone on the wall. He goes, "This is Chet, I'd love you to play on my new album, Stay Tuned," which David Hungate produced and had a compilation of a lot of great guitarists on it, like Steve Luke, studio like Larry Carlton, Steve Lukather, George Benson, Earl Klugh, just all kinds of different guys on there, And he said, "I'd like you to play on this cut with Mark Knopfler and me called Leather and Lace." And I was like, he goes, "You think you could come over Thursday at my studio and do it?" And I was trying to act cool, and I was like, "Let me look at my calendar, Chet." And it was, I had a literal, page calendar up there. It looked like a snowstorm. I said, "Yeah, Thursday's going to be great, or Wednesday. If you want to do Wednesday. If Thursday's not good, if somehow, let me know. Tuesday." Anyway, he'd call me for that, and I went in and recorded. Another nerve-wracking moment, but a proud moment. And that's what got me started, really. When I got that, I was on that album, and I remember going to the local record store, not knowing I could probably call the record label and they'd give me a copy of it. I figured I had to go out and buy it to see if I was on it. So I remember going into which they're extinct now, right? The record stores.
They are.
Back then it was like, you go in and one of the staffers in there, I was like trying to look and tear open the cellophane and look, and he goes, "Hey kid, get away from that." I said, I'm on this. He goes, "Yeah, right. Get out of here." I said, "No, seriously, I'm on this album." But, so.
At the time when they listed the names that were on there, we don't really have that right now,
right.
But I mean, the different world that we live in.
That's a shame.
This next generation, as they watch this here and they look at this here and they see such a profound musician as yourself and a career that is continuing to grow with what you have done and continue to do. What would you say in closing to the next generation as they're watching this, advice for them to pursue their dream in music?
There's a lot of my history that when I got here, it still applies now. I think I was saying earlier to you, I don't know if it was off camera, but is hanging out in the little cliques that go on. That thing where I'm going to come in there, I think I'd like to kind of pop into Nashville for a week and see if I can make it, but then I head back. You probably won't have any luck. You might experience a little bit, but you have got to come in here. And I would say, for young people, here's the advantage. If you're not tied down, if you're not married, you don't have kids, well, that's great. You're pursuing your dreams. Hang, meet people, be a nice person, be an open person, have open ears. Yeah. Kind of learn the little tricks of the trade. Every little music community has them.
Yeah.
And hang and do what I did. If you're in there with a songwriter and you are, first of all, you got to have a talent, because you come here, this is where all the best guitar players or whatever musicians come from, the best ones in their little hometowns all over.
Absolutely. So know your
all
craft.
Of a sudden you're not the best anymore. You might have been the best in your little hometown, but now you got competition.
Know your craft.
But use that as a positive.
Yeah.
And then you become a part of that community, and you might get some low-paying gigs at first, and then all of a sudden you find yourself playing on a record, So that still applies, even though things have advanced. I mean, the technology and everything has changed and increased and got, different. It affects everything, of course. I think this, just to sum it up, is just be here and implant yourself and be at the right place at the right time. That old saying still holds true. There's no overnight success. It's just being here, willing to, work with other people and be modest and friendly and have all those attributes. And all of a sudden, hey, you got to listen to this kid here. You're looking for a road gig. Road gigs seem to be a good way to start. Now, I have some guys go say, I want to do sessions. I want to do recording sessions. Well, I said, yeah, you got to go through different levels to get to that. I mean, there's no rule that you can't, but it's just with all probability, you got to work your way up to that plateau. You can record now. I mean, everybody records their records maybe in a room like this, I mean, back then there was no such thing when I started. You had to have a room full of humans playing to make a record, and you would overdub. Now they can, just send you something, files to play on and stuff like that. So, or your band, you can work. A not so good band you can make yourself sound good if you're a good engineer and move things around and But I mean, basically, it's just being at the right place, at the right time, being able to hang. Some guys, middle-aged guys or something, I've always wanted to come to Nashville. I'm going to move my family and my kids up here. And I said, stop though. Don't plan on just landing a gig of your life when you get here. You might have to be a waiter, or you might have to do. I would say really weigh out the pros and the cons of that. I would advise not to do that. But it's always better when you're younger. I'm graduating from music school or high school, like I did. I just got lucky. I guess I had some talent that they saw, and it pushed me forward, in a good way.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, Nashville has got some great musicians. Clearly, you are one of them. And to have had the chance, to have had the chance to be able to play with these legends and now become a legend. That really is a beautiful
I
story.
appreciate you saying
That's
that.
a beautiful story and what you've done, Brent. On behalf of the Sessions, we thank you so much. Keep this
thanks,
thing going.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, man.